Hello and welcome. In this part of the video tutorial we're going to focus on creating a low resolution mesh. A low resolution mesh is what the game renders at a distance to try to speed up performance. It's usually about 1/3 of the original model's polygon count. What we're going to do here is start off by using the original model to create it, since it's a lot faster and easier. We're just going to duplicate this here and actually remove it from the hierarchy there and freeze it. We're going to remove from group. We're going to hide all these. There. Now we're just looking at this. We'll add it back into the hierarchy under ship bone, because it's got to be under the same bone that influences the regular resolution model. And we're going to change it so it has this suffix at the end. And having that naming convention tells the game that it is the low resolution mesh and will not render it, close up clipping through it won't render both of these at the same time at the same distance at all times. Now what we're going to do to start, we're just going to go through and start selecting edge loops. I usually go by selecting every other. We're just going to start clearing them out. There we go. Parallel edge loops. We'll use Control Delete the collapse components. Also these little recesses here, since that won't be seen, I can just get rid of those. And since the model has the original hierarchy, or original UV maps, I can just fill that in by adding a polygon, and it'll actually have that same exact face that it normally would have there. And I can just go through and remove all these edges, since they're really not doing anything but adding the very vertices we're trying to reduce from the model by reducing its detail. Now, next here, get rid of some of this here. I don't want to get rid of that. Also do the same thing over here. There we go. Got a little bit of clipping there, but that can easily be fixed by just selecting these two edges here and moving them back a little bit. Let's see, I only want to move them back as much as I need to. Now to move over here to this area, select these parallel edge loops and start collapsing components. There we go. Some more here. As well as getting rid of some of this on these guns here. Some of that detail just isn't necessary. Now moving to the back side. Get rid of some of this from around these engines. As well as getting rid of some from around this little sensor dish here. Don't want to delete these in here, as it'll kind of change the shape a little too drastically, a little more than I'd want it to be. Let's see, as well as getting rid of some around here. Let's try collapsing these and seeing what happens. There we go. Not too bad of a result. And then maybe getting rid of some of these extra guys in here too. There we go. A lot lower poly than it was. Got some extras in this dish that really aren't necessary too. And there we go. Maybe we can get rid of this right here. Break that down some and let's see. What about these here? I don't want it to select anything back behind there. Like those. Those are needed. There we go. I think I'll just... maybe I'll get rid of some of these. Let's see. Those two. Right there. There we go. I think that just about does it for that. Other than little bit of tweaking there. Wrong axis. There we go. Get rid of some of these on this strut here too. Make that a little boxier, a little lower resolution. Let's see, is there anything? These here could use a little bit of tweaking. Let's see if we can pull that in some. So we don't have any open areas. Now these little guys here, I don't think there's too much being wasted on them. I don't see any way to really be able to knock them back without losing their shape entirely. So I think I'm just gonna leave them as they are. That should do it for the body. What I'll do is go back and freeze that. And now, unhide that and start with the wings. Change the name. I wonder why. Move from group. There we go. What we'll do here is just, these things here are so small, I'm just gonna get rid of them entirely. There. Not even there anymore. Now some of these, start on this. Now this little area here I'm not able to really go through and so easily remove by selecting an edge loop, since there isn't really defined edge loop to follow there. Maybe it'll work right here. Looks like it did. There we go. So get rid of those under there. Now for these here, I think what I'll do is make them sort of thin there. Now, preserve certain parts here. Oops. By deselecting some of this. Now for the other parts of those, since they're going to be a lot harder to select. There we go. Deselect those back there. What I'm pretty much going to be doing is turning those, since they're somewhat thin shapes, turning them into sort of a wedge shape. There we go. And that'll reduce things quite a bit without really losing any defined shape. Now, next up is this. Let's see here. Oh, let me go back to recast select. Go. That's changed things quite a bit. Need to fix this little area here by adding a new edge. Kinda messes with the texture a bit, but it's not gonna really matter once it's in game. What I'll do is collapse these also. No wonder why. Let's see what it does though. Still kind of distorts the texture a bit no matter which way I go with it. There we go. I think that should just about do it for the low resolution on the wings. Just freeze that. What I'll do is make these their own group, since the only other two parts are the launchers, and I'm not even going to bother making a low resolution mesh for those, since those hardly stick out much on the model in the first place. And I'll just make these their own group. What I'll do is hide them for now. I don't want to be interfering with the scene at all. And there. So far we've got the main mesh, the low resolution, bones, simple animation for the takeoff, and hard points. And next up will be the collision. Now normally with collisions, if it's something that doesn't have animations, a certain part that does not move, you can use like a mesh which can have pretty good definitions to it and not, you know, be too restrictive on what you can do with it. You can pretty much almost do anything with it. But since this has moving parts and even the whole ship itself rotates on takeoff, I'm going to be stuck using primitives, and primitives have a lot of restrictions to them. If you check out some of the documentation on primitives, you can use cubes, but you can only scale them in X, Y, or Z and move them, but just like any other, you cannot modify any components like vertices, polygons, or edges. You cannot change any of that. It pretty much cannot have any construction history whatsoever, and you can't move the center either. And with cylinders and spheres, you cannot scale them, you can only move them and rotate them, and then you use the geometry operator to actually change their size. You can change the length and diameter of of a cylinder through using the geometry operator, little pop-up box. And the same with a sphere. And you also don't want to change the subdivisions either when they pop up. So I'm going to start by first just making a simple one. We'll just do a little cube here. What we'll do is we'll scale that down and just sort of snap it over there and go back to the 4 views for this. And you just want to get it to fit as closely as possible. To the mesh you're using it on. And even though you probably could, you know, you can change vertices and edges to fit it better, but you can't have any construction history. You have to resort to just scale and just get it as best you can. And you also don't even want to duplicate them and change their axis at all. So even though I want to make another one for this, I'm pretty much just going to have to make another cube. But what I can do at least is, let's see, match all transforms in there. And I can go in here and manually edit the transform so it should fit perfectly over the other one. And for spheres, they have to totally be sized using only the geometry options, and then just can be translated where they need to go. Same thing goes with cylinders. Now, might have some small problems with clipping, but more than likely just have to deal with it, since everything on here can only use primitives. These at least I can scale. Do that for now. So I'll duplicate that. I'll do that. Start with the wings. Close as possible. Not worry about it being super perfect. Let's see. I'll do the same thing here for the other one. I'll just do this to mirror it to the other side. Go. That's almost perfect. Let's move that up to 10. Oh. There we go. Pretty spot on. And then we'll make another one for the struts. close as possible. Drop down a little more. There we go. There's the little struts. And a couple more cubes. Should be able to finish up the wings. And bear with me now, because making this bottom half sphere part seems like it's going to be a lot of trouble. Since I can't use an actual mesh, I'm going to use a primitive. It's going to be pretty difficult to figure something out for this one. You know what? Let's see. So I don't think anything's gonna hit there very often. I'll have to come back to that. have to do on that is just use possibly a cube. I think that's really the best I'm going to be able to get it. May have to come back to that part if I possibly get a better idea on how to deal with it, but you get the general idea. What we'll do here to sort of check it out. That's all that there. Make a group for that, call that collision. Now we're gonna go through and rename everything, which is pretty quick and easy. If you see here for primitives, I want to use this naming convention. I usually just go through and add all the little types for it right here. Except for maybe on the wings, I might leave the flag out, but on the main body I'll definitely have the flag and all the other types of collisions, since, you know, pretty much needs to have all of that. The easy way to just do that is just do this. There we go. I'm just gonna kind of copy paste that onto each part. Might leave the flag out of these ones. change that for these. Now it's totally up to you which way you want to set all these up, but I figure this thing might be used for multiple types of maps, so it'd be good to add all those in there. And I don't think it really affects anything, having more or less. Alright, everything's in there. Now, to start putting them with their proper groups, with their proper bone. And on these you'll just put them right under the actual bone that they're going to follow. And there you have it. Fully made collision primitives. Not perfect, but since I'm stuck using primitives for this one, it'll have to do. Now if you have something that's not animated, you can make an actual pretty conforming mesh. Usually it's easy to just base it off the low resolution mesh. You can sometimes just make a copy of it and delete the UV maps and using proper naming convention, which is just collision instead of the P at the front, underscore, hyphen, and then the other types, and then hyphen, then the name, which can be just anything. The name doesn't matter, just as long as it has this in there in the front with the X's filled in with these different types. And of course, before you export, you don't want these showing. You only want the main mesh and the low resolution mesh showing.